So I'm looking over and I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, what? She's looking around. She's like, I don't see it. And I'm like, it's fucking Eric Costin.
Was
Eric
he really?
fucking Costin was sitting. Yes, we ended up hanging out. I was just like,
oh my gosh.
I was. It's funny. Like I've met some musicians that maybe other people would freak out by, but I don't. I think because we're doing the same thing, it never really. It doesn't affect me. But like I was at a 49ers game because my wife is from the Bay and we lived there for the last 5 years.
Okay.
And she works for Levi's. And so every now and again, we would get these tickets to go see the 49ers in the box, which is just like stupid.
Insane.
Push. But so I'm looking over and I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, what? She's looking around. She's like, I don't see it. And I'm like, it's fucking Eric Costin.
Was
Eric
he really?
fucking Costin was sitting. Yes, we ended up hanging out. I was just like,
oh my gosh.
I was by the end of it, I was that drunk guy just being like, you got to bring back the Costin ones.
Dude,
like,
the Costin ones were so good.
They were the best skate shoe on the planet, dude.
They were the first one that had like
fucking nubuck.
And they had like a Charger logo one, or not logo, but like colored, like the blue and yellow. And they had the air pocket in the heel.
That's right. God, dude, it was just like, I mean, I've like hung out with famous musicians and I'm just like, yeah, you play guitar, so do I. I fucking saw Eric Costin and I just lost my shit. It was like, God, I just never thought that would happen.
That's so cool. But especially in the Bay Area. Well, how random at a 49er game you got Eric Costin.
I know. It's just like, I don't know how this is happening, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Adam, by the way, and this is about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new record, which I absolutely love. I had a chance to hear it. It's amazing.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, the band started in Seattle area, but I did read, are you from Virginia?
Yeah, I've been here since like 97 essentially. And yeah, I went to Seattle in 2009 and that's about the time when I started meeting people and we started this band. But yeah, I've been kind of coming back off and on for the last while. I actually just moved back here for the rest of the year. I just got back a few weeks ago to Richmond.
Oh, okay.
It's a place that many haven't been to, maybe driven through to get to DC, but yeah, it's somehow it's my home and
you're back.
It's chosen me. There's nothing I can do about it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, what was it like growing up there?
Well, it's funny how you look back and you sort of like color things in the way that you like, because in 2009 I couldn't wait to leave Virginia. I was actually very excited to get out, because I had never really been anywhere else. I think the furthest west I had been was Kentucky at the time. But I guess when you move somewhere else, you start realizing that these things that you just assume are everywhere might actually be like pretty specific to a place. Like growing up, middle school, high school, like behind my parents' house was like a bunch of woods that had 2 small ponds that would freeze over in the wintertime. Just like trails where you could genuinely get lost there, if you, I mean, eventually you would find something, but it really allowed for like imagination and exploring. I got super into like transcendentalism when I was like 16, 17, and I was just like reading Walden in the Woods. I was that weirdo. But so I guess in certain ways that I might not have, really appreciated at the time, I realized like, if I would have like, my good friend Kenny is in the band, he grew up in LA and like, he just didn't have that kind of thing,
right. Totally different.
Other things. Yeah. I mean, he had 6 skate parks that I didn't have, but, but I had the woods.
Sure.
So growing up there, I guess for me, may not have realized it at the time, but it definitely shaped me. I'm sure like every place has shaped most people. And I keep coming back. I keep finding myself drawn back. Yeah.
Well,
how about you? Where are you from?
I'm in Nashville now, but I'm originally from San Diego, so Southern California.
Oh, okay.
I spent a little bit of time in San Francisco, but I just recently moved to the Nashville area, and I absolutely love it here. It's such a, like you just said, it's such a different like lifestyle and pace and everything, but we love it. I've got 2 kids, and my wife and I, we just moved here about a little over a year ago, and we've just absolutely fell in love with it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, how did you get into music? Did anyone musical in your family, musical household at all?
I was kind of a late bloomer.
Hmm.
My like there was an organ in our house just because my dad, which I didn't even know this until maybe not too long ago, he was kind of forced to play organ in the church because his
Okay.
dad was a minister, like a Southern Baptist minister. So by the time I was around, it was basically just there because they needed somewhere to put it. He never played the thing. He never went to church. I think he kind of just did a full 180. So I never really saw music. I never was around any family members. Nobody I knew in the family played music. Um, although I think it was on my 30th birthday, I was visiting my grandparents in Tupelo, and they showed me these newspaper clippings of like, I don't know how many greats, but whatever great grandmother of mine would have been. Um, she was, I forget. I think they were in South Carolina at the time, but she was Chickasaw Indian, and she had like built this one man band scenario, and she was like in the paper for it. So that
Wow.
was generations ago, and literally the only musician that I know
Fine.
of in the
Yeah.
family. Yeah.
But that's pretty
So
incredible to find that out, at 30, right?
yeah, and yeah, and by that point I was like, doing it for real.
Right.
So maybe that's why it came up, because they probably just thought it was right irrelevant before that.
Mhm.
I thought it was incredible.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like I think it was my senior year in high school where essentially I traded like a half ounce of weed for this guy's conga sets, because for some reason I had some like all of my close friends were in bands or they were skateboarders, and I was a skateboarder, and I really was starting to love just going to their shows. And so much of my like troubled teen soul and emotions just like felt so alive at those concerts.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I was just like, I have to figure out a way to get in this situation. So I started playing hand drums, and my friend's band let me join for maybe a few weeks, and they kicked me out. But I kept playing, and eventually that led me to getting like piano for dummies, and just learned enough like music theory to like do the lessons.
Mhm.
And was like, oh shit, 3 chords, like all of my at the time poetry or just thoughts, I can now, you know, put music to them. And so that's kind of how it started.
Mhm.
And I just, for some reason, um, thought that that's what I was supposed to be doing, even though at the time I was really, really bad, really bad.
Well, you were writing
Um,
poetry prior to that then. So you've always been kind of a writer, it sounds like.
yeah, I've always been drawn to like taking the things that I see and notice and looking for parallels.
Mhm.
I think that's also why I love nature, is because so much of it I would find these parallels happening in nature. And so it sort of gave me this like calming feeling of like, okay, these are all cycles. If you zoom out, like you can see this is inevitable here, but you can also see what the other side looks like. So you're just on the other side right now. So that way of thinking was kind of my brain even when I was younger. And I think
Mhm.
it was just my it was my therapy for a long time. So
Sure.
but yeah.
What then took you to Seattle? Was that music? Did you want to like pursue that as a career path?
Yeah, so that was '09. So I guess around um a few years before that, I started playing in a band with friends. Like basically when everybody graduated high school, most of my friends went to college. I did not. I moved an hour south to Richmond, got a job at Subway, um, applied for like college, community college, to try and study music. Couldn't get in, didn't have the money, didn't have the grades. Hence yard sales and these like, piano for dummies. And so I just kind of was like, well, I want to do it, this is how I'm gonna have to do it. And fortunately, Richmond, like, there's an art school here, VCU. So there was a lot of like really creative people around, whether they're musicians or not. Um, And so eventually some of these friends of mine either dropped out of college or they also didn't go. And all of a sudden they were like, I just saw John and he says he wants to start a band. Because to them, the last time they saw me, I was just like the bongo player. And they were like, what are you talking about? But I had been like learning piano and like recording my songs on a 4-track and like trying to sing. And so for like, I guess a handful of years, I had a band. We like Tyler, the drummer. And then I went to high school together and he was in one of those bands in high school, yada, yada. He joined my band. We practiced like 5 days a week. We took it really seriously. I think we only played 3 shows over the course of like 4 years, but we literally, like every single day we would rehearse. That eventually fell apart. You know, certain people like just kind of cherry pick another thing, like, oh, this band's touring, I should just play with them. And then this guy leaves. And then I was just like, you know, I don't want to be relying, I don't want to have to like rely on other people to do what I want to do. So I made a little EP and was just like, I'm going to move anywhere I can go. And a friend of mine who I was working with at a restaurant, she was going to move to Seattle because her cousin had like a condo that was empty because he was a merchant marine. So he was gone for 3 months. And so I convinced her to let me, you know, pitch in gas money. And I knew her parents really well. So they were also like stoked that somebody else was going to go with her because we were going to drive. So that's how I wound up in Seattle. I mean, I had never, honestly, I didn't know very much about it at all. Yeah, it could have been anywhere. I was just I just knew that I needed to go somewhere because Richmond at the time wasn't really, it wasn't being noticed.
Sure. Well, Seattle has obviously a reputation when it comes to the music industry. Right. So
yeah.
If she's like, I'm going to go to, you know, Louisville, Kentucky, would you have left?
I mean, honestly, it was the best ticket in town. So yeah, even if she would have gone to Kentucky, I would have been like, well, that's not far from Nashville. I would have, I was going to go, no matter what, because anything was going to be some kind of opportunity.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking about that this morning. I like, what are the freaking odds, man? Like, wind up in Seattle, all of these other people who wind up in Seattle, a couple of the band members, Charity and Chris, and now Maddie, they're from there. But like, I meet Josiah at a bar. He just happens to be like going to grad school there because he's from Southern California. And then Kenny ends up moving up a year later. Randomly, we meet him in the same bar. I mean, it's just strange to think how many other cities I could have wound up in and that they could have wound up in. And just the timing of the fact that these 6 people met. I know this sounds like rehashing some cliche part of our bio, but every now and again it hits me and I'm like, that is insane.
Sure.
You know, because I mean, so much of what this band, I mean, the fact that this band's been able to hold it together for 12 years is because of like mostly music chemistry. I mean, we've had to work on our actual friendships a lot. That wasn't a very natural part. It was the musical chemistry. And it's just mind-boggling how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, and right out the gate, I mean, with the first record you guys put out, success. I mean, it sounds like from what I was reading about it, you guys put out the, you know, by yourself, right? Self release it, and it's just flying off the record shelves to the point where, you know, Sub Pop, it comes to you and we're like, hey.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Sub Pop was the last one to show up. There were all these majors courting us, and we really wanted Sub Pop. And we held out almost to the point where like our pro bono lawyer / stand-in manager at the time was just like, you're turning down, like, if you turn down any more of it, like they're all going to go away. You know, it was like, we're turning down Universal, turning down Warner, other indies, and we really just wanted artistic control more than any kind of, you know, flashy like money sign up front. We just knew that we kind of had that freak scenario where we were watching, like, I think we sold something like 10,000 copies on our own before
That's
anything.
so
And
crazy.
so we already knew that like the music was working. And so the last thing we wanted to do was like roll the dice on some label that might say like, oh, like other people are interested, so we're going to post you, and then you have no idea what they're going to ask for you to do later. So we were like, this, at least for the first thing we do, it needs to be on an indie. And fortunately Sub Pop came around, and
which is interesting to me, because they're a label in town, and if your band is selling all these records in town and you're a local artist, they would think like the obvious scenario.
And I don't want to throw them under the bus because they're
I'm just saying it's just
but it is kind of funny. It's like, how about the band that's in your city crushing it right now?
right
you know, like,
do you have a copy of that first EP, the one that you guys pressed? Because I read that it was like on a denim sleeve, like you put it on a denim sleeve.
So at first, I mean, it was just like burned discs and denim sleeves.
That's so awesome though.
And then I'm trying to remember, I think we have two like sort of like legitimate looking packages. One was before Sub Pop and then one was with, but I would have to double check that. But I definitely have one of those here in my apartment. I think I have like one of each, you know, record vinyl.
Sure. That's cool.
A weird tape from Let's Be Still.
That's amazing.
Maybe one day I'll be able to play it. I don't know. But,
Well, I mean, what was it like, you know, you get signed and then you're getting thrown on these huge tours. Eventually you have a #1 single on the radio and the album goes gold. I mean, right out the gate, what was it like kind of digesting all of that right away?
It was like I guess it definitely was a quick rise, maybe in the grand scheme of things, but it didn't feel that way for a while. Like it kind of felt more like a gentle slope, long rise. Like the upstart was quick, which was amazing. We're very fortunate. But then the type of like I don't know, like we had like a hit song on like, you know, like AAA radio. But it was never like, it wasn't, and I almost feel like grateful that we didn't have something like a Mumford & Son or like a Lumineers. And I'm actually very stoked for both of those bands, especially Lumineers, because we were in the trenches and they had been doing it longer than us. And they were like, I don't know if we can keep doing this shit, man. And then for them to have that
that huge song.
Oh hey, oh hey, hey, oh hey. I always mix
oh,
up.
Hey. I think
Great
it's
song.
Oh Hey.
Which is funny because we're used to seeing them do that song with us, like, you know, in a place like a saloon with like 12 people. And then for them to have that success, it was like, oh shit, that their model changed in such a different way. So, but I guess trying to get back to your original question, like, also you have nothing to compare it to, you know what I mean? I was just like, I guess this is how it goes. I mean, you know, we were riding around in that van all over America for quite a while. But it was great. I mean, we started getting like opening gigs, like you were saying, like we got to open for Dr. Dog, which was like the majority of the people in the band's like favorite band from Philly. And that was our first like legitimate tour where we learned a lot, like within the first 3 days, like just like kids not knowing any better and getting yelled at by like your favorite band's crew, and you're just like, you're like, but then like 3 days later you're like, fuck yeah, this is never gonna happen again. Our shit is loaded out right after we're done. I'm not gonna stare at you. I'm not gonna stare at you during your sound check because now I understand you think that's weird. But yeah, no, we had a great team. We've always been very blessed with great people around us. We just kept getting opening gig after opening gig, which was good for obviously to get your name out there, but also for your like sharpen your skills. You know, you're playing in bigger rooms, which you're not ever doing as a headliner when you're just starting out. So that really helped us learn how to perform. Yeah.
Just to jump ahead a little bit here, like when you guys, you put out Signs of Light, and this is the first time you kind of have to tour a record, and you have to step in the front, the front there. What was that like? Was that difficult to do?
Yeah. It was and it wasn't. Like, I think, I guess I've kind of always been the one that's like, and actually I shouldn't say that. I think every single person in this band would say like, there's no way I'm gonna let this fail. But as the one of two songwriters that were responsible for doing the majority of the writing, to lose that other person, not just in terms of the work that you're able to provide, but just, I mean, there was just a completely different, it was almost like it's like I wanted to get there, but not like this. Like, this isn't how I wanted to get there, so there was always like a little bit of a like guilt of I think it took me a while to like shed just some baggage before I finally realized like, you got to do you. Like, this is you. This is kind of like naturally where you find yourself, and own it. Yeah, I think it took a little while for me to realize like, oh, the minute I get over my bullshit, the minute I can actually start being like a better leader to anyone around, and if I don't do that, then I'm just kind of, nobody's benefiting from that. So, but yeah, it's been an interesting road. And this band is it's so unique in a way where like, we from the very get-go, we're like, this is going to be a democracy. Like, there's no one leader. Financially, everything is split equally, and depending on what it is going on with the band, whether it's like songwriting or merch or videos or press or all kinds of things in between, like it kind of changes, like who sort of takes the reins almost is always like in motion. So that also kind of I don't know, it's weird. It's like everything is kind of the long road to get to a place in this band, but it always ends up feeling like that much more rewarding.
Right.
Like the last couple of years, like if there is a silver lining, and I think there are a few from this pandemic happening, was like in terms of our world, finally being able to like rip off a lot of band-aids and have direct conversations with all of us together, and be able to like air things out, and not being like, oh, the next thing you have to do is an interview or walk on stage or go on TV. Like, there's just no good time to like just handle shit.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
So yeah, I mean, this isn't a prompted question from you, but it's like, I think the most significant thing that happened, this record aside, is actually just like the rebuilding and just the trust that is finally happening in this band, like it really, like it did in the early days. And I think it does translate to a lot of the decisions made on the record, and how we allowed ourselves to make these bold choices and just trust one another's ideas, and not get in the way. So
when it comes to like the record behind that, Living Mirage, was that something that was kind of like a difficult record to put together? I mean, obviously the album was amazing and it does really, really well, but at this point it's like, okay, now it's the band dynamic has changed a little bit, but was it still pretty was it still, everyone's opinion on writing the record and everything together at that point, and versus now?
Right. To be honest with you, no, not really. And it wasn't done in an intentional way. It was almost like there's certain, like there's a few of us in the band, I think, that like our way of coping with trauma or whatever is just like work, and just like put your nose put your face down and just get to work. And then on the other hand, there's people in the band that like, they can't even really wrap their head around working, or at least from a genuine place, until things are discussed and like relationships are respected and mended. And I didn't understand that for a while. I was compartmentalizing it, I guess, for a little while, but
well, yeah, I mean, you said traumatic. I mean, what a traumatic thing to happen. I mean, with the band moving forward, and then you got to put this record together kind of without your co-pilot, so to speak.
Yeah. But I think
it sounds like everything I was gonna say, it sounds like everything got aired out within the past, having that downtime, not having to, like you said, talk to people like me or go on TV or tour or do all these other things. You're able to kind of hash out everything, and you guys made a hell of a record, man. I will tell you, like, it is so good. I had a chance to hear it. Hurts is, I think, by far, I love the whole album, but that song to me is so freaking good.
Awesome. Nice. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So like when it came to writing the record, tell me a little bit about, like you said, it was more of a democracy when it came to this album. Did you guys all bring elements together, and like how were the songs built?
Yeah. I mean, I guess like another sort of like sneaky unforeseen benefit to a few people in the band was the fact that we had to start this record by working remotely, each one in their own house, different cities, our own studio, learning how to record ourselves. But for a few people, like they actually, they're more comfortable having more time and more space to sort of work out parts or ideas before making it visible to the rest of the band. So it kind of, it lended itself in a way that really our workflow had never really lended itself before. I keep thinking about Maddie's Charity's husband, and he's just like a very prolific writer who could put out like a double record tomorrow. One of his songs is "Don't Show Your Weakness." He wrote that with Kenny and Charity, and then he wrote the last song on the record, which is "Get the Fuck Up," but it's GTFU. I don't know. I was trying to figure out how does this feel more democratic, and it's like, well, John has 13 songs on the record, and then he has two. So I was like, I don't know if I can actually make that point. But in terms of like, I guess I can still, because like songs like, I guess most of the songs, in terms of like the song taking its like final shape versus how I began the song, really always has had so much to do with every single person in this band touching it and changing it and rewriting something or adding a part. And I think that like the first song I think we tried to do like this was Paradigm, which I think is like track 3 on the record. And it was the first time we're sort of faced with this, like, okay, we're going to send each other tracks. We're going to listen independently. And then if you have notes, I guess we'll just text you. Like we did everything wrong essentially for like months. And it was just like a bomb went off, which I think kind of was the catalyst for the amount of focus on working on communication and like mental health and realizing that, like, especially now, if we don't learn how to talk to one another and figure out the best ways of talking to each other, like there's no way we're going to make this record.
But were you able to like what would you say, was there a moment during the record that, like, in the democratic, aspect of it, was that somebody came forward and was like, oh, I have this piece, and then you were like, oh my gosh, like you wouldn't expect that to happen, and maybe in the sense of like, whoa, like this is so awesome, like thanks for.
I mean, I guess it still makes me think of Paradigm. I mean, like there's sections in that song where there's like it almost sounds like a banjo, but I don't think it is. I think it's like a Nashville tuning acoustic and then a 12 string. Maddie just threw all of these tracks at this song that when I first started, it was just like a vocal, a bass line, and a drum beat. And maybe a synth pad at first. And he threw this stuff that like kind of has like a early REM vibe to me. And I like could not have, like, I just like, I don't know how you thought that this is what goes on this song, and it ended up working. Yeah, I mean, there's moments like that with probably every single song. Yeah, I guess like the second half of us making this record was like mid-year of 2021 when everybody was vaccinated and we were able to go to Seattle all together and get into a room. And it just felt like kids in a candy store, because like we had kind of gone through the hardest part, which was working on our communication skills, accepting the process that was remote. And now it was kind of like the easy part, just get in a room and do what you do best. And so it almost felt like a release. And it's just, I mean, the amount of like every single person was just doing, I don't know, it's like literally watching kids play with like toys, you know, like it wasn't just the band that like goes in and like, okay, I'm a piano player, so I'm gonna sit at my piano, I'm the drummer, I'm gonna sit here. Like everyone was just sort of up and moving around. And it was like, okay, today we're working on this song, or at least like the first half of this day we're working on the song Shut Up. And you just kind of look around the room and it's like, you have an idea? I'm like, I got nothing. And Maddie's like, cool, I have 3 ideas. He'll go in and you know, and we hear it, we're just like, okay, that was weird, or that was great. And then Chris will be like, oh shit, okay, I hear something. Like it was a very interesting process that just was fun. And yeah, I mean, and that's the moments where you realize like it's, I don't know, it's great to have a band, you know what I mean? Like every single person was like firing on all cylinders and just coming up with shit that you never would have fathomed, and having fun, and somehow it works. Or if it doesn't, you just start peeling away. But yeah, it's like we got back to being a band on this record.
I love that. I love the record. I really do. And speaking to Shut Up real quick, the piano piece in that song is so cool. Like the piano riff, I think it's amazing.
Oh man, Kenny will love that.
The piano in the song is really cool. I mean, like I said, I love your records. The piano in this one stands out to me a lot when I listen to the album. So if you want to share that with Kenny, or not, but I'm just saying.
No, I will. He'll love
between that and Hurts is my favorite song on the album. But I really appreciate your time, John. This has been so awesome. I thank you so much.
Adam, thank you, man.
I have one more quick question for you before I let you go. I just want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is, and I think there's probably no answer that's not a cliche in this instance, but like you have to believe in yourself. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be times when no one else is really going to understand what you see or what you know is inside of you. Like it may not have developed externally yet, but you know it's there. And eventually they will see it, but also eventually sometimes there will always be moments where like people are either like very supportive and very aware of like why you are who you are and what you've chosen to do, but there's just as many times when people are going to question it and doubt it, and you've always got to be able to come back to that notion that like I'm doing this for a reason, this is what I do. You have to believe in yourself, you know. I mean, it's good to also have doubts, right? Question yourself, and that's how you grow. But ultimately, like you've got to be the one that believes in yourself more than anyone else, I think.